When shooting in Team Yankee, you look at the weapons block on the card. Tanks and aircraft can shoot with one weapon or all of their machine guns. Infantry, each team chooses one of the weapons it has and shoots with that weapon. So, we're going to shoot at M1 tanks at the T-72s. So we're going to use the 105mm gun line since the machine guns aren't going to do much damage. The first thing we need to look at is the range. It's fairly straightforward. The tank has a range of 40 inches or 100 centimetres. That's way over here, so they're definitely well within range. The tank then has a rate of fire, either halted or moving. For the M1 it's 2 in each case, so it doesn't matter whether in the movement step they moved or not, they're going to fire 2 shots. Some types of vehicle have a different rate of fire when they're moved, so they'll use the second column. The score needed to hit depends on the target. So we take the T-72 card and we see a T-72 is hit on 3+. You always look at the target's is hit on number when you're shooting. The more skilled the target, the harder they are to hit. They're making better use of cover, making use of their smoke discharges, and otherwise making themselves more difficult targets. So a T-72 is hit on 3+. Then there may be some modifiers. The first modifier is the range more than 40 centimetres or 16 inches? It is from this tank, so this tank is going to be firing at long range. Normally that would be a +1 to hit. However, the M1 has a laser rangefinder which gives it no 2-hit penalty for firing beyond 16 inches or 40 centimetres, so it's not going to suffer that penalty. However, it is firing across a cornfield, so these guys are going to be concealed, which will increase the score by +1. If it was dark, if the tanks had gone to ground, which meant that they neither moved nor shot on their turn and were concealed, that would be another +1. If you were firing through smoke or various other things like that would increase the score required further. But in this case, none of them apply, so the score to hit is 3+ for being a T-72, +1 for firing through terrain. So this tank gets 2 shots, hitting on 4+, and it scored 1 hit. The next tank also scored a hit, and then the third tank also scored a hit. Now, we could have rolled all 6 dice together since the score needed is the same for all of them. Once we've scored hits, we allocate them. Now, each tank needs to pick a target. The first tank will pick that target, second tank pick that target, and the third tank pick that target, say. And that's what you rate your score to hit based on. Now, if the opponent doesn't like this allocation, for instance, if this chap here was the command team, it doesn't make that much difference in the game, but say you didn't want your command team destroyed, then they can attempt to use the mistaken target rule to move the hit somewhere else. All the Soviet player needs to do to move the hit, or to swap the hit between 2 tanks, is to roll a 3+. On a roll of 2, they can't swap the hit, and they cannot attempt to swap more hits. On the other hand, had they rolled a 6, for instance, a 3 or better, then they're allowed to go, those 2 tanks are going to swap their hits. Since that is also a valid target, and within 6 inches or 15 centimetres, I can move the hit to that one. Now, I could, if I had another pair I wanted to swap hits between, roll again, and again if I rolled a 3+, I could make another swap. And I can keep doing this until I either run out of pairs to swap, or I fail to roll a 3+. In this case, the command tank has not been hit, and I'm happy with the allocation as the Soviet player. Now the next thing I need to do as the Soviet player is make an armour save. I look at my card, and I see that the armour is 16 on the front and 8 on the side. I compare that with the anti-tank rating on the Abrams, which is 20. And what I'm going to need to do is roll the dice, add my armour, and get better than the anti-tank rating. The first thing we need to know is whether it hit the hull or the turret. The hull, being side-on, only has 8 armour, whereas the turret, being front-on, has 16 armour. So it'll make a considerable difference to how well protected the tank is. So the first one, we roll low, 1, 2, 3, we hit the hull, high, 4, 5, 6, we hit the turret. We hit the hull. The second one, we hit the turret, and the third one, we also hit the turret. So, The first one, we hit the hull. It's got side armour of 8, so 8, and even if I rolled a 6, there's no way I can actually equal or exceed the anti-tank rating on the M1, which is 20. So that means this shot went straight through the armour and penetrated the tank. Now, since it penetrated, the American player looks at their firepower, which for an M1's 105mm gun is 2+, and rolls to see what they do. If they make their firepower rating, the tank is destroyed. If they don't make their firepower rating, in this case if they roll a 1, the tank is merely bailed out. It's damaged but not destroyed. And we roll a 1, so that tank is now bailed out. The second one, we hit on the turret. The turret has 16 armour, so we roll the dice and add 16 to it, and we rolled a 5, so that's a total of 21. Now, if the range is greater than 40 centimetres, we add another +1. It's not, so that's 21, which is greater than the 20 of the M1 Abrams 105mm guns anti-tank. This tank is perfectly safe, the shot bounced off. Now the last one is also within 40 centimetres, so it's not at long range and not getting a +1 to its armour. It got hit on the turret. Turret armour is 16. 16 plus 4 is 20. Now that's exactly the same as the anti-tank rating of the 105mm gun. That means it's neither penetrated nor safe, it's in the middle zone. So now the American player needs to make a firepower test. If they fail the firepower test, then the tank's perfectly fine. If they succeed, then the tank's bailed out. And 2+ for their firepower, that tank is also bailed out. So the Soviets have suffered 2 hits and been, or 3 hits and been very lucky and had 2 tanks bailed out. Now, the bailed out tanks at the beginning of this next Soviet turn are going to need to take a test, and they look at their remount number on their card, which for these is 3+. On a roll of 3+, completely fine. If they don't roll a 3+, they remain bailed out for that turn and will need to re-roll again at the beginning of the next turn. They cannot do anything while they're bailed out, and until they manage to make that 3+ roll at the start of a turn, they're in an indeterminate state, waiting to find out what's going to happen to them. Now we'll look at shooting at infantry, which is very similar to shooting at tanks with just a few minor differences. The first is that if you look at an infantry card, such as this BMP-1 motor rifle company, you'll see that it doesn't have armour values. Instead, it just has an infantry save of 3+. So that means that when a hit is scored on the infantry, instead of rolling a dice and adding its armour, it just simply needs to roll 3+. A 6, it's fine. If that one had been hit and rolled a 2, then it would be destroyed. Simple as that. If it's dug in, then it needs a firepower test by the gun shooting at it to confirm that it's destroyed. The other difference is that when you hit infantry with a lot of shots, 5 shots normally, or 8 if it's a very large unit, then the infantry become pinned down. Very similar to a tank becoming bailed out. Pinned down infantry cannot move towards the enemy, cannot assault, and have penalties to their shooting. They always shoot as moving, even though they're not moving, and if they do move, they can't shoot at all. Then, at the beginning of the next turn, just like the tank's been bailed out, you have a look at the card here, and you'll see they have a rally number. In this case, it's again 3+. If they roll their 3+, they're unpinned. Otherwise, they remain pinned for another turn. Now, although your toy soldiers are made of plastic and resin and lead, and don't really have any feelings, the real soldiers that they're modelling tend to get a little upset when they take heavy casualties. So the game has the same effect on your troops. So let's say the Soviet return fire knocked out one of the M1s and then bailed out another. Now, to be in good spirits, a tank unit needs 2 fully operational tanks. The unit's now down to 1 fully operational tank, which means it's not in good spirits and is going to have to take a unit morale check. And you can see here it's got a morale number of 4+. If it rolled a 4+, it would be fine. However, having rolled a 3, the remaining tank departs the battlefield. If it had rolled a 4+ at the beginning of the next turn, it would be testing against its remount number of 2+, the M1 is a very safe tank, to see whether it gets rid of the bailed out. Rolled a 3, so the bailed out result goes, and now the tanks are back in good spirits. They have 2 fully operational tanks. Until the next Soviet shooting turn, when if they took casualties, they would no longer be in good spirits again and have to take another test. Now your formations are in good spirits as long as they have at least one unit from the formation that's still in good spirits. And you can take multiple formations in your force. So you could have a tank company and an infantry company fighting side by side. Your force is fine as long as one of those 2 companies is willing to keep fighting.